Now we have Laura.
Hi. Last week I spoke at the Cambridge Union, and a week earlier, before I got there, one of their members had been to do a big prestigious debate at Glasgow University Union. You may have heard about it. She was shouted at, bullied, and prevented from participating fully at the highest academic level, purely because of prejudice on the basis of her sex. We're living in a culture which limits, marginalizes, stereotypes, and belittles women at every stage of life. Last year, I started a website called the Everyday Sexism Project to record experiences like hers, women's experiences of any kind, from the minor to the major, no matter how large or small, in which they face prejudice because of their sex. I had no funding, and I had no way of promoting the website, so I thought maybe 10 or 20 of my friends, maybe 100 women, would end up adding their stories, and I could say, look at this, it does happen. In under a year, nearly 25,000 women have added their stories to the website. They're women of all ages, races, ethnicities, sexual orientations, cultures, backgrounds, employed and unemployed, religious and non-religious, from all over the UK and the world. One mother wrote that her 5-year-old girl asked if she could be changed into a boy because she wanted to go into space. A 15-year-old girl wrote that no matter what she did, whether she was funny or clever, whether she became a doctor or a lawyer, the only thing that she felt mattered in the eyes of the world was how attractive she was, and whether or not boys would find her sexy. She wrote about the importance of large breasts and a tiny waist, and said that she could see from the media that successful women were only really successful if they were successful and hot. She didn't think she'd ever be good enough. A reverend from the Church of England told us of the countless times that people asked her if there was a man available to perform the wedding or the funeral. Nothing personal. A 7-year-old disabled girl in a wheelchair and a 74-year-old lady in a mobility scooter recorded almost identical experiences of receiving abuse and jibes about female drivers. A woman who worked in an elite city firm described how senior partners assess prospective female candidates according to their attractiveness. Thousands of women reported being groped, touched, harassed, stroked, smacked, pinched, and grabbed in public spaces, from bars and clubs to cafes and libraries, pavements, tubes, and buses. One woman tried to get off the tube, only to have her breasts firmly grabbed by a man who pushed her back on and said, "This isn't your stop, love." Another ignored catcalls as she rushed on her way to catch a train, only to find that the men in the car who'd been shouting at her actually drove up onto the pavement to pin her against the wall. One woman wrote, "I had my skirt pulled up numerous times in high school. I was flashed twice on my route home. I was groped between my legs in a club and had a man masturbate whilst telling me he wanted to suck on my tits in the street in broad daylight." Countless shouted comments about how attractive or unattractive I am over the years. She ended her account, "I consider myself lucky, relatively." For 4,000 women, the largest category that we've had, have described serious harassment, sexism, and even sexual assault in the workplace. From the women who were told to sit on their boss's lap if they wanted their Christmas bonus, to the waitress who was sacked because she refused a threesome with her boss and his business partner, to the video store cashier whose boss smacked her on the bottom every time she went up the ladder to retrieve stock from the storeroom. There was a woman working in a dark room whose boss would always come in without knocking and his hands outstretched to try and grope her in the dark. Hundreds of women have reported being asked illegally whether they're pregnant or planning a family in job interviews. Thousands of women wrote about the way they see women portrayed in the media all around them every day as sex objects, stereotypes, and jokes. And it's not just women who are in the media because of their looks like models who are treated in this way, it's any woman in a position of public prominence. When Theresa May made a mistake on timing in the case of the deportation of Abu Qatada, the Metro newspaper ran the headline, "It only takes a minute, girl." Underneath it, there was a picture of her and Qatada with the caption "dating game," and inside, a cartoon of her as an old lady complete with a headscarf, tortoiseshell glasses, clutching a handbag and saying, "I'm having one of those days." Is it any wonder when one schoolgirl who wrote to us said in a school discussion that she wanted to get involved in politics, that she was told by her classmates she should be a porn star instead because she looked like a prostitute? Another student wrote, "I took A-level politics. I worked so hard to prepare for a debate in which I was the only female on the team. While providing a counter-argument, my teachers stopped me and asked the men in my team, 'Are you going to let a woman do all the talking?'" These attitudes are becoming so pervasive and starting so young that we've had reports of girls as young as 5 worrying about their body shape and thunder thighs. Schoolboys in year 11 saying things like rape is a compliment, really. And hundreds of reports from schoolgirls of being catcalled, pursued, and abused in the street whilst wearing their school uniform. Often things so sexually explicit shouted at them that they didn't even understand what the men were saying. From the very beginning, children are learning messages about what girls' and boys' roles are. One man wrote in to say that when his daughter of 3 picked up a toy stethoscope in a playgroup, somebody automatically went, "Oh, how sweet, you're going to become a nurse." They're learning ideas about who's allowed to do particular kinds of jobs and how very, very differently they'll be judged. Women are learning so early that they'll be valued according to their looks alone that 1/4 of 7-year-old girls have dieted to lose weight, and by the age of 10, that figure rises to 80%. Throughout their school and academic experiences, girls like Rebecca, the Cambridge debater, are being silenced, belittled, and mocked for their academic aspirations. When they reach the workplace, they're sidelined, underappreciated, and harassed. When they reach positions of power, they're subjected to a barrage of irrelevant criticism. Hillary Clinton is asked about her favourite designer rather than her political ideals. Angela Merkel is mocked for her page boy hairstyle and her frumpy suits. Sarah Palin has been immortalised as a blow-up doll. And amidst all this, they're subjected to a constant bombardment of sexual harassment, sexism, and even assault just for having the audacity to step outside their front door. But there is a change coming. Women around the world are rising up. From the women of Egypt, India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan rising in outrage against sexual violence, to the hundreds of new feminist societies springing up across universities in the UK. Hundreds of young women have written to me to say that they didn't even know what sexual assault was. And when I wrote an article about sexual assault, which under UK law is somebody touching you in a sexual way without your consent, they had no idea that that was what had been happening to them. It was so normalised. When they went out into clubs and bars and their bottom was groped or their breast was touched, they thought that was just something they had to put up with. If they'd gone to their friends and said, "I've been sexually assaulted," their friends would have said, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And then when they said, "Yes, this happened to me," they would have said, "Oh, for goodness sake, don't be so melodramatic. That's not a big deal. We put up with that every day." Women are putting up every day with something that they are legally protected from by law, just because we've got so used to suggesting that it's all part of life, it's part of being a woman, we're overreacting, we're frigid if we say no. But now women do realise they have the right to say no, and they are standing up. We're hearing brilliant success stories. One woman wrote to us about how she went out for a run after reading some of the stories on the website, and a man in a car called her over and asked her for directions. She gave him directions, and then he reached out of the car window and grabbed her breasts really hard. And she said, "I felt all the emotions coming over me that I usually feel in those situations. I felt embarrassed, ashamed, shocked, angry, scared, and the urge to run. But I also felt something else that I hadn't felt before, and it was thinking of all those other women standing behind me saying this wasn't okay, and it just gave her the strength to stop for a moment and take down the car number plate, and now the man's been charged with assault." Another woman told us about how when she was working as a waitress in a bar and the chef kept pinching her bum, the manager would look the other way and pretend that he couldn't see it. So the next time it happened, she made sure she had a massive tray full of glasses in her hands, which she promptly dropped, smashing everywhere and forcing him to take notice of the situation. Another woman got so fed up of cold callers ringing and asking to speak to the man of the house that she started putting them on to her 6-year-old son, who would sing to them, "I'm sexy and I know it." Another woman wrote to say that she was at a bus stop when a man looked her up and down and said, "You're pretty fit, I've got a place, you could live with me." She turned to him and said, "Dude, women aren't Pokemon. We're not roaming the wild waiting to be collected." And he just looked at her completely baffled and didn't know what to say. So women are standing up. And I'm standing alongside them because I don't know about you, but I want more. I want more than rape joke pages on Facebook. I want more than to be told to get a sense of humour love. I want more than just 1 in 4 women in Parliament, more than just 5% of the editors of top newspapers being women, more than just 13% of women at the top of the judiciary. I want more than just a 2 in 3 chance as a woman on this earth of not being raped or beaten in my lifetime. I want more, and I hope you do too, because our voices are loudest when we raise them together.